Hey everyone, Richard from Digital Foundry here with an in-depth look at Batman Arkham Knight performance on PC. And there's very much a sense of deja vu here as we looked at the game back in July and came to the conclusion that the only way to run the game effectively was to lock at 30 FPS and use Nvidia's adaptive VSync technology to iron out frame pacing issues. And 60 FPS was very much off the table, even with high-end hardware. In fact, the situation was so bad that Warner Bros. Removed the game from sale, where Arkham Knight would be substantially retooled by developer Iron Galaxy, in conjunction with the game's original author Rocksteady. Now, an interim patch was released in early September, but last week saw the arrival of a new 2.3GB update, which coincided with the game's return to retail. So has the situation improved at all? Previously we ran the game with an i7-3770K paired with a GTX 780 Ti, and it's fair to say that the situation was pretty dire. Now here we're playing with an overclocked i7-4790K paired with a GTX 970. Now that's a card that's broadly similar in performance to the old Nvidia Kepler. And the result? Well, here we're attempting to run 1080p at a locked 60 FPS with VSync enabled. And well, it's sort of working for much of the duration, but remarkably we're still dropping frames. The GPU monitor tells us that we're never hitting full utilization of the graphics card here, so something is still seriously wrong. The 970 is a 4GB card, and even with the game maxed we're still seeing drops, and we're not running any of the Nvidia GameWorks options either. There's a fundamental problem with Arkham Knight which has been improved but not really properly addressed. The game is designed for the current generation of consoles, and they thrive on a unified memory setup. Game code, art data, everything, it all resides in one block of RAM. Now PCs don't have that. Instead, GPU and system RAM is entirely separate, and data needs to be shuttled between them. Most PC developers can cope here, but alas not the studios behind Arkham Knight. We're told that 4GB is enough to run the game maxed at 1080p, but that's clearly not the case. But make no mistake, if you're looking to run Arkham Knight with console level quality settings, you need a 4GB card. Here's the Radeon R9 285 2GB compared to the R9 380 4GB. These cards are effectively identical, and we've overclocked the 285 a touch to match 380 throughput. All that's really different is the RAM allocation, and you can see that masses of performance is lost on the 2GB card. You'll need to pare back textures to low settings and shadows to normal, and even then we're still observing some stuttering issues. So has the new patch actually improved matters over the interim release last month? Here's the 2GB 285 running the same content. We're spinning around in the Batmobile then going for a quick drive. It's a far more convincing workout for the memory subsystem as opposed to the less than helpful in-game benchmark. You can see that there is a small improvement in memory management, but it is small. Next up we're comparing the 2GB GTX 960 with the R9 285. You can see that the Nvidia card is still badly affected by the lack of VRAM, but its stuttering issues are improved compared to AMD. So effectively a GeForce gives us better value from its memory than its Radeon equivalent. And if you do have a 2GB Nvidia card, locking to 30 FPS and using the GPU control panel's half-rate adaptive VSync is still the way to go. There's still some pretty intrusive stutter, but you can mitigate it by lowering textures from high to normal, which does seem to offer a console equivalent experience. Dropping to normal or low quality shadows may also help to iron out that stutter a little too, but the fact that we're battling so hard to get an experience on par with PlayStation 4 and much more capable hardware is just unacceptable, and really pushing the boat out on hardware doesn't really seem to help that much with frame rate. Here we've paired the same overclocked i7 with an R9 290X, which really doesn't fare well at all, the GTX 970 and the GTX 980. The Nvidia cards fare okay, but there is still a little bit of stutter, and in fact it's still there even with a GTX 980 Ti. It seems that some improvements have been made to Arkham Knight, but you're going to need a 4GB graphics card to get the full console experience with a reasonably solid frame rate, and unless you're at GTX 970 or 980 level, we still think that using half-rate adaptive VSync to lock to 30 FPS is probably the best way forward. You may be underutilizing your GPU, but you can always run at 1440p and downscale using Nvidia DSR. For AMD owners, you can lock to 30 FPS, but the frame pacing is off with VSync enabled, producing an inconsistent update and jerky gameplay. In conclusion, we were promised a fundamental revision of Arkham Knight, but instead we've seen some optimizations, but only with limited effects. Warner Bros. Has recognised that people aren't happy and has offered to extend refunds to the end of the year, but really, we just want to see a brilliant game handled with the respect it deserves. So well, that's Arkham Knight on PC. Not the most positive of reports, but there we go. If the vids proved useful, give us a like, or better yet, subscribe to Digital Foundry to ensure that you don't miss a thing. That's all for now, thanks for watching.